Vidya Shankar. He completed his B Architecture from National Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli. He did his graduate training with architect Kukke Subramania, Bangalore, which was his initiation into the design practice. He then went on to pursue his Masters in Architecture from CEPT University, Ahmedabad, specializing on architecture, theory and design. During the years 2007-2010, he was working as an associate architect with the architect P.G. Sivakumar, Tiruchirappalli from Tamil Nadu, where gained design experience on varieties of projects ranging from college campuses to small residences. He then scaled heights by working with the architect Dean de Cruz, Goa, during the years 2013 to 2014. He received the opportunity to work on projects of intense design explorations with a master architect on varieties of projects including an art gallery, boutique hotel, housing and residential projects, all in Goa. Today, Vidya Shankar stands to be an esteemed visiting lecturer at few reputed architectural schools in Trichy, where he continues his academic interests through teaching.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series. We are looking into the subject of Theory of Architecture 1. Now we are going into the Unit 2 of Theory of Architecture. The Unit 2 deals with the basic elements of architecture, the contents of which are as follows. First we will be seeing about the points, lines, the planes and finally the volume. What are the basic elements of architecture? Actually, the basic elements of architecture are as listed in the slide. First the floors, then the walls which are sitting on the floors, then the pillars, then the roof which is supported by the pillars and the walls, and the doors which are openings in the walls, and also the windows, and finally the steps. All these elements which are different from each other put together forms what is called as architecture. But we are not going to see in detail about all these individual elements now. We are going to see about the elements of architecture which are more conceptual and which are more simpler. We will call them for now as the basic elements of form, not just architecture form, a form of even a painting or form of sculpture or any design in general. The elements are the same what we saw before, the points, lines, planes and volume. If you see, what we call as a volume is a three-dimensional thing. That is what architecture actually deals with. But if we go back and see how a three-dimensional volume is created, it is made up of two-dimensional plane. And this is the sequence of gradation from a three-dimensional volume to a plane. And if you see it, your two-dimensional plane is made up of lines which are of a single dimension. And a single line is made up of a continuation of what you call as a point, which does not have any dimension at all. We will see about all these four things in detail. First, the points. Point is the very basic element which creates everything else. Now we will see the significance of a point, that is the meaning of a point. We will see that with some sketches now. If we have a rectangular field and a point in its center, you can see the point does not have any dimension. It does not show any direction. Therefore, it has a central feeling. It creates a focus in the entire composition. Therefore, it dominates the entire field of the rectangular field. But if you slightly change this position of the point in the rectangular field, if we move the point from its center to any one of its sides, you can see and feel as if the point is floating in the field. Sometimes if the point is there down, you can feel as if the point is sinking. So just by changing the position of the point, you can realize the point, the field and the entire composition gets a dynamic quality by itself. The point based upon its position creates a visual inertia. Now we will see in what all ways a point manifests itself other than a point itself. Again we will demonstrate with some simple sketches. If you take a simple line, At both the ends of the line you can visualize an imaginary point, and also at the center of the line there is an imaginary point. A line is made up of many points, but out of all the points these 3 points has its central focus and importance. We will take another example. If we have a simple line and we intersect the simple line with another line, there is an imaginary point that is created at the junction of it. A point manifests itself in other ways also. For example, if you take any simple shape like a rectangle or a triangle or any other irregular shape, all the edges of the shape has an imaginary point in itself, which again has all the qualities of the point. Even if you take a 3-dimensional object like this, what you call as the vertices of this 3-dimensional object, which are all the corners, the joining edges, joining of the planes, has an imaginary point in itself. A point occurs in some other imaginary way also. If you take any shape, the center of the shape has an imaginary point in itself. For example, in this rectangle what we saw before, at the center of the rectangle there will be an imaginary point. In the center of the triangle there will be an imaginary point. Like this, in center of all the faces of planes there will be an imaginary point, which has the qualities of point that we discussed before. How does point manifest itself in architecture? We had so far seen points as a imaginary conceptual element. Now we will see its relevance in architecture. How points occurs in architecture? A point can occur itself in architecture only as a vertical element seen in a plan. What is called as a column or a pillar, which is a vertical element, in a plan will be seen as a simple point, buildings around it or being part of a building itself. And those points in the building has all the qualities of the point that is discussed before. In what else way a point occurs itself in architecture? Even an entire building can be seen as a point in a large expanse of space. For example, an entire building in a large expanse of space around acts as a point. Another building next to it is another point, and there is an imaginary line connecting both these points. So, from a simple column to the entire building can be conceptualized as a point in architecture. Now, we will move into the next aspect, which is line. What is a line? Line is nothing but repetition of points. Now, we will see what are qualities a line has. A line is a point that is in movement. So, it has a quality of movement and dynamism. A line has a new quality, what is called as direction, which was not there in the point before. Line also have this quality of what you call as a growth. A line has more significance in a composition, either architecture composition or a composition in any other art forms. A line in a composition may signify what you call as a linkage. Two elements in a composition can be linked with a simple line. What you call as a shape is formed out of what is called as line. The edge of any shape is nothing but a line. Other than these qualities, a line can be used to articulate what is called as a simple plane in architecture. Now, we come in to discuss some more points and qualities of line. A simple vertical line, as shown in this picture, if you see, has a quality of what you call as standing against the gravity. It is compared to a human being standing against the gravity perpendicular to the ground. So, it signifies what is called as a equilibrium against gravity. If a line is horizontal like shown in this picture, it is compared to a human being at rest. The line has a quality of stability, a quality of being at rest. All this imaginary philosophical qualities of a line is applied in architecture, which you are going to see further in this lecture. In what all ways a line manifests itself in a composition? A line can occur as the edge of the plane. when two planes intersect each other, the joining of two planes can have an imaginary line. If you take a three-dimensional object, all the edges of the three-dimensional object is made up of what is called as a simple line. In what all ways a line manifests itself in architecture? So far we saw about it in general, now we see about that in specific to architecture. These are the points and ways in which a line can occur in architecture. First, a line can act as a vertical element signifying a position in space. It can act as a space defining element, which is an imaginary space. It can simply act as an articulating element of a plane. A line can act as an axis in an architectural composition. It can act as a path in architecture. It can act as a simple connecting element. We will see about all this in detail one by one. In this example, if you see, there is a vast space at the center of which there is a simple vertical line, a single vertical pillar, an architectural element, which signifies and creates a focus at the center of the architecture composition. The next point, a simple line can be used to define an imaginary 3D space. In this example, if you see, there is a three-dimensional building which is the main building, but around this three-dimensional building there is an imaginary three-dimensional volume that is created. You can see a cuboidal volume around this building which is created by these minarets. These four minarets are just vertical elements which creates the imaginary three-dimensional cuboid. Here is another beautiful example of a simple art installation which has only lines in it. It is a composition of vertical lines and horizontal lines which is creating a three-dimensional space which is like a maze, a three-dimensional space which you can walk through. A line can be used as an articulating element also. For example, if you take any building, a line can be used to articulate, that is to signify or to decorate any architectural element like this wall or the roof or the window borders or any other element of architecture. In this next example, if you see, many vertical elements in forms of lines are articulating the facade of the building. This is the Cathedral of Milan, which is having a magnificent vertical quality which is all created just by the vertical lines in the facade. This is another view of the same cathedral having the beautiful vertical quality created by the lines or the linear elements of architecture. Now we are moving to the next point. A line creates something important, what is called as an axis. What is an axis? Axis is an imaginary line that is created by connecting two elements in a space. If you see this example, there is a central axis that is created by connecting these two buildings. Axes have one more quality, it divides space on either side of it. This vast expanse of space is now have become two space by this axis. It creates a symmetry on either side of it. In history, people have made use of this qualities of line as axis to create importance to buildings. For example, in this building complex of Virupaksha in Vijayanagara Empire, this Virupaksha temple is at one end of the axis. At other end of the axis, you have this mountain with the small mantapa, and it creates a symmetry on either side of the axis, which is the market space running all through the length. So what is called as an axis brings an order, creates importance at both of its ends in architecture. Here is another example from Srirangam, where you have axis being used as a powerful element to signify the center of the line. In this case, there is not a single axis, there are two axes perpendicular to each other. One is this way running north to south connecting all the gopurams. There is another axis which is not seen in this figure running perpendicular to this. The junction of both axes is nothing but the main sanctorum of the god. Now we are moving to the next point. A line can signify or give a meaning of a path also. A path which is not necessarily be a straight path, a path which is curved also. What is called as a simple line, what is seen as a simple line can signify what is called as a connection. If you want to connect two separate elements in architecture, or if you want to connect visually two buildings in a large space, you can create the connection by a simple linear element. In this case, it is the two part of landscape, the two sides of a valley that is connected by a simple linear element which is a bridge. What is called as line have more attributes to it in architecture. Here is a plan of a building that is made up of linear elements seen as walls in plan, which creates a sense of orientation, a sense of direction as one moves inside the building. The form of the building itself can be linear, as if it is a line, creating a sense of movement and direction, connecting different parts of the building, like in this picture. A building form can be linear, not necessarily be straight. It can have any curvilinear form, like in this example of the hostel building by the architect Alvar Aalto. You can see examples of application of the qualities of line in architecture. This example shows how the dynamic nature of line is applied in architecture. This is the building of Witira fire station designed by architect Zaha Hadid. It has linear elements in terms of the long wall and this roof which having a linear quality and this vertical linear columns, all creating a dynamic effect to it. The abstract beautiful qualities of lines are used not only in architecture but in other forms of arts like painting also. At one point of time in modern art, just a simple line or just a simple plane is considered as the most powerful artistic element in a composition of a painting. This is a painting by Piet Mondrian, just a simple composition of line. This is another painting by a painter called Vasily Kandinsky, which is a composition of simple geometric lines and planes, creating an aesthetic effect. Now we are moving to the next aspect of what we call as planes. A point moves to create a line repeats itself to create a plane. How is a plane created? A plane can be created by just simply repeating a line, or just 3 points in any space can be joined to create what is called as a plane. There are many more options also, like in these points. A single line and a single point can be joined to create an imaginary plane, or a moving line or a moving point can be imagined to create a plane. What all significance and meaning a simple plane has? A plane creates a sense of direction, a sense of orientation and sense of axis. These are all the qualities that we saw before as the qualities of line also. What you call as a line has more significance to it. It creates a focus at the center of the plane. Also it creates a focus at all the corner points of the plane, and the entire plane create what is called as a shape. Now actually we are moving further towards the relevance of plane in architecture. We will see now how a space is created with simple planes. Instead of seeing spaces being created by walls, roofs and floors, we are going to see it as just being created by planes. The horizontal plane, the vertical plane and the overhead plane. But you can understand you don't have to have all these different kinds of plane to create a three-dimensional volume. You can have a combination of a few of it to create what is called as a three-dimensional space, like shown in this. Just 2 planes is enough to create an imaginary three-dimensional volume. A single plane and a point ahead also is enough to create a three-dimensional volume. Also a single plane, a vertical one or a single plane which is horizontal is enough to create an imaginary three-dimensional volume. Now we will see what all significance these different kinds of planes are having. For example, if you take a horizontal plane, It creates what is called as a datum for composing many architectural elements or any other design elements around it upon it. A simple elevated platform which is a horizontal plane creates an infinite space above it. What you see here as the overhead plane creates the meaning of a shelter around a person standing below it. What you see as a vertical plane here creates what is called as a three-dimensional volume and also creates a meaningful display area. Now we will see how plane occurs itself in nature. Do we have a perfect plane in nature at all? There is only one example where we can see a perfect plane in nature, that is the surface of water. Other than that, we have certain imaginary planes in nature, that is the ground, which is almost planar, and also the sky above our head, which is almost planar. So a simple plane has all these meanings inside it. Do we have vertical planes occurring in nature? A perfect vertical plane? We don't have, but we have imaginary planes, like in case of the rows of tree, we can see a vertical plane, or a cliff of a mountain, we can see a vertical plane, which has all the qualities of the plane that is discussed before. What more qualities a plane have? A plane can have what is called as color in its surface. It can have a texture, which is of a tangible aspect. All these qualities of the plane, that is the color and texture, contribute to the space inside also. Now we move into the next aspect, the last aspect, which is called as the volume. Volume is created by repeating planes or composing planes to create a three-dimensional thing. What all properties a volume has? A volume have what is called as a three-dimensional shape. It can have various shape as shown in this picture. What is called as a volume or a form can have a quality what is called as size, small or big, vertical or horizontal. A three-dimensional form can have color in its surface, it can have texture in its surface. A three-dimensional volume can have a orientation, can suggest a direction also. A three-dimensional object, if it is kept in its base, it can signify stability. If it is kept in an unstable manner, it can have a dynamic effect like shown in these pictures. So far we have seen the basic elements of form, the point, lines, planes and volume, and we have discussed the basic qualities, the imaginary qualities of all that, and we have seen some examples of their application in architecture also. Now we have some questions to test our understanding of the discussion now. What are the basic elements of form? What are the qualities of a point? What are the significance of qualities of line in architecture? Explain that with some examples. With this, now we come to the end of the session. Thank you.